As we talked about before too, obviously what affects this differently is when you have positions that are budgeted for that are not filled. So last year we had a rather large deficit, but that's what we budgeted for. We budgeted for and tried to hire openings that we had in our department. But in reality, we ended up with 8 police officer positions that were open. We had a number of other changeovers across the city. I think, Ryan, is that true that we have 1 public works position open still? Though that doesn't really affect the general fund, but in general, across the board, we have positions that we have funded but not filled. So the threat, of course, is you can keep going that way until you actually hire those people. And then reality sets in that we would end up with a very, very large deficit. This year we ended up with a deficit. The deficit only ended up, I say only, but the deficit ended up being, is that on the sheet?
It's like
350,000, give or take.
I think it's going to be a little better because I ran the sales tax report for June, and it's a little higher than what I anticipated, so it might be a little closer to 3.
So we're lucky people are still buying into June. So right now we're still until June 30th, we're still in the estimating phase, obviously, of both what our expenses will be and our revenues, but we do know we still are going to be obviously having a significant deficit. Imagine if we had 8 more police officers working for us right now. That deficit would be well over $1 million.
I have a question to ask. Linda, you've been doing this for a long time. I've always been one of those over the years that went over your particular thing in our book. Always intrigued me of where the money was spent and everything. And going over this current year's budget, December 31st, which was halfway through the year, we used 49.4% of our budget. We had $3,547,669.87 left. And then going to the April 30th, which left us basically May and June, 2 months left. We had used 79.32% of our budget. So that leaves roughly 20% left. And it said the budget variance at that point was $1,449,832.67. Now, I know each month's different. It varies from month to month. It has as long as I've been looking at these things. But just doing the simple math of taking the remainder that 50.6% left from December 31st, which means we had 6 months left. So take that divided by 6, and it comes to $1,182,589.96. And if we just use that 6-month average, right now, or at the end of June, we should have $267,242.71 excess. What do we spend that much money on in May and June to exceed that much for the rest of the year, or for the previous 10 months?
First of all, I don't have what you have in front of me, so it's not the kind of thing I can just riff off the top of my head. I would have to have a look at it and get back with you.
Well, this is what you put in the packet every month. This is December's.
I know, I realize that, but I don't keep all those figures in my head.
Yeah, no, I understand, that's a lot of figures.
Yeah, that's the kind of question I prefer you maybe come in my office and we can go over it together. It's just really hard for me to answer those kind of questions on the fly.
And I understand that the mayor's position hasn't been filled since Dusty took Jeff's. But at the same token, Dusty didn't hire in at the same wage that Jeff did. Plus, we have the vacancy of all these officers throughout the previous year. I just find it extremely odd that we come up $1 million short.
So we're not $1
every year.
million short for the end of this year. We're about $300,000 short.
But just from what you send out every month, I'm coming up with $267,242.71 extra.
Well, I will have to look into that and get back with you. I really can't go through that all right now in front of everybody during a meeting. I apologize.
Are you speaking solely about expenses, or are you factoring revenues as well? Because
The general fund, that's the only one we're in.
Well, I'm not sure which report you have. Are you looking at the two-page report where the front is revenues and the second half?
Treasurer's report. Won't get everyone.
Dennis, I mean, so there's,
Treasurer's report. See, last year,
well, do you want an answer, or do you want to talk about that some more? Because I can give you, first, you answered your own question when you asked it, which was, expenses are not the same every month, nor is revenue. So if you're looking at the fund balance in December 31st, we haven't fully realized property taxes being paid at that point. I mean,
it comes in after the December 31st.
Just off the top of my head, there's a significant amount of all of our revenues that comes in after that date. Plus, anybody who's shopping in November, December, sales tax fluctuations happen quite a bit, especially considering people who shop for the Christmas holiday. We get that money remitted 30 to 60 days after the fact that BOR collects it. So there's a lot of things that create those spikes. And if you want to answer to those questions in detail, and we can try to fish that out as best we can. But unless you can point to something in there that specifically you have.
Well, with what you just said, the taxes and everything come in after December 31st. So that's an increase there, it goes up. Not that up. Okay.
The general fund would go, correct.
And if you go through all the months, and I thank them for doing this, but every month it's got in here. This is January 26th. So this is one that should be down because everybody's done shopping for Christmas and they just got their tax bill. Okay. January. 1% local sales tax up 1.6%. Transportation tax up 1.17%. Capital improvement, 1.66. And, one is up in January. Now granted, there's months that are down. Some months are as high as 10% increase or higher. My question is when we set a budget, and then we get blamed on the internet by people who've only been on the board for a couple months, I'm wondering where they're getting some of their information. That we've kicked the can down the road all these years, and in reality, how many years have we been at $1 million deficit or a deficit period?
I'd have to look that up too. I mean, I think generally it's been a deficit for quite some time. A budget deficit, not an actual deficit.
And, it's...
Print out that sheet for me, please.
Okay.
I can multitask. I can, yes, please.
Anyway, it just makes me wonder how we can be moving on along at a good pace and then all of a sudden, boom, we're at this huge deficit. When you bring this up, The only ones that don't come out of the general fund is Ryan's department. Correct? Street department.
There's more people that, I mean, we have people at the water window that are partially paid, honestly.
That don't come out of the general fund.
Correct.
Okay. But
There's, I mean, the people that do support those services, we do pay some of that out of water or street fund, yes.
so, you know, when you look at this whole picture, it just makes me wonder, you know, the reports that we get every month, at the end of the year, for some reason, now we're running in a deficit. It also makes me wonder that last year, when we were going through this same scenario multiple times during the past, another one of those history lessons, we've always went to the point that in December, we would go over that. Well, December came, December went, we never went over anything as far as the budget. You know, it gets to the point where you think everything's running smoothly, you think everything's running good, and all of a sudden out of the blue, you know, everything falls to shit, pardon my language. But it just makes you wonder why, when we get to this one certain point, then we gotta start cutting, and the police department's the one we wanna cut, which is a big safety issue for the city of Troy, and I do not agree with that whatsoever. You know, yeah, you can give them more money to the current ones, is that good? Yeah, it makes it better in their wallet. What's it do for morale? What's it do for their family time? It destroys it. I know I worked 3 years straight without a day off. Worked 10, 12 hours a day, 3 years straight. So I know what it does personally. And I don't think that's sending a good message to anybody that has to do it. And furthermore, I think it would be beneficial if some people would refrain from putting stuff on the internet and constantly telling the ones that have been here from previous boards. So that's me right now. I'm the longest one. But to continually put on there that we basically don't know what the hell we're doing.
That's never what I said. I never said your intentions weren't well intentioned.
You said that we were kicking the can down the road.
Correct. And now look at us, we have a $300,000 deficit that we had to reconcile at the end of the year.
But that's not true.
It is true.
No, it's
That's
not,
what James
because
said.
last year
Connor,
when
you've been here 2
we,
months. How do you know that's a fact?
That's what the numbers are. That's what the
Hold on,
numbers
hold
are.
on. Everybody hold on, one at a time.
last year when we had our budget meeting and lockers was brought up, we knew that it was going to cost the $400,000. That's when we discussed doing the use tax.
I understand
the use
that. I
tax.
saw those
That was supposed to offset loggers.
And I think it was a bad
Unfortunately-
idea to put it, I think it was a bad idea to put the idea that, oh, we're gonna expense this with the hope that the taxpayers will approve a tax that they have historically consistently voted down. That was a bad idea. And it
Well-
was kicking the can down the road for this board to handle.
But you weren't there.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
I'm not conveying, I mean, I'm not,
Can I ask a question?
According to the audit book, you have to let people speak.
No, I understand.
I just got a question from Linda. A while ago, you said that that's a budget deficit, not an actual deficit. Can you explain that?
Yes.
Can you?
At the beginning, I thought James explained that perfectly last week when we had the meeting. You start at the beginning of the year, you set your budget with the intentions of what you hope will happen for the year. And in this case of this past year, there was a deficit. Well, now we have Ameren franchise tax came in a lot higher. We had understaffed positions. There's just any variety of things. Our health insurance came in cheaper. I mean, we budgeted, I don't remember the percentage, 10% maybe. It came in less. I mean, these are all budget versus real. I mean, a budget is predicting what you think will happen.
So what you're saying is, we're not broke.
I've never said we were
We've got
broke.
the money. But what we've got is poor budgeting. And what we've had was poor budgeting.
Okay, well, that's your opinion.
No,
Well,
but actually, the
that's-
auditors say that in the audit book, that they never at any time mentioned that we have a deficit or that we are in the red or anything. On the last page, it covers the fact that you should really have more help in that department as one of their recommendations. And another recommendation is that we are one of the few cities that still do our books the way we do. And it's really not an approved way of doing them. The way we do our books does not allow for growth. We are always.
Are we talking about?
Alderwoman, we fixed that.
But the way
Okay,
we set.
that is an audit of previous years.
No, this was for 24, 25.
Right, we're in 2026. The fiscal year 2026, that did not occur because I changed those, all of the things that this board spoke to me about, previous board spoke to me about, their concerns, the issues in that audit about not budgeting for growth. We remedied that. That is an assumption that is included in my projection, was included in last year, and we built in growth in accordance with what other communities also felt was a best practice where we thought growth might be. We still undercounted by 0.5%, but you know what? I mean, in the budgeting world, budgeting for sales tax growth is a whole lot of swag.
But we're also going to have more homes next year. Whiskey Creek is going to be built, we'll have income from that. We've got a commercial.
There will not be a
business
single
coming in.
person in Whiskey Creek who will pay property taxes by the end of next fiscal year. And that's what you have to budget for. There will not be a single tax bill remitted in Whiskey Creek. They haven't even built the street there yet. So by December 31st, they'd have to be assessed and remit a tax in order for us to account it in this budget. Now we can have that conversation for 2028, but, or 2028, I'm sorry. But that's not for this budget. And we also know that Whiskey Creek, you know, how many homes are in Whiskey Creek?
There's going to be 101.
101 homes, which will pay an average of less than $100 a house.
Still
So,
will be income though.
sure, so we'll put another 10,000 in here.
But would it even pay for the streets that are going in front of their homes, James?
No.
No.
We can't even get the current builders to dedicate the streets that they build quarterly.
Thank you.
So,
But the streets aren't dedicated to the city, as you said in the past, is not the city's concern.
you still get calls about them, so I think people are concerned about it.
Yeah, people-
But it's an issue that we have to still remedy.
They're definitely concerned about it, because people move in, assume that these places will have good streets and everything will be great for their new homes as they move on through their life. It doesn't work that way. We've got numerous neighborhoods in the city that aren't having streets haven't been dedicated to the city, and they're falling apart. And like you said about my daughter's problem, it ain't the city's problem.
It's a private street. It's a private street.
All right, we don't need to relitigate this, so I just remind the board, this is our time to present solutions to these issues. We can finger point and do all the other stuff that we want to do another time, but before the end of the month, we have to have something passed for the people of the city. They expect us to have a budget in place. By law, we have to have a budget in place, so I'd like to hear some solutions.
I do want to reiterate, Mr. Mayor, just again, so we're clear about the deficit issue. Previous administrations, two things happened. Number one, this is the list of all of the employees who have left service of the city in the last decade. Many of those positions have never been filled. Many of those positions were budgeted for. Some of them were filled but not budgeted, or filled but not filled in a timely manner. All of that constitutes a huge savings. So that skews what budgeted versus actual is when it comes to personnel costs, which is by far the largest fees and costs to the city. All of these people were expected to be hired and employed by the city. Their salaries were accounted for, their vacation, their sick time, their loggers. We budgeted for it. We said we're going to pay it. And then we didn't hire them. Or it took 6 months to hire them. We have been trying but not hired a new police officer since October of 2025. But we have budgeted for all of those empty positions. Therefore, the deficit shows we're going to spend this money, but we don't, because those people have not been hired. The reality is we want to hire these people. We want to hire good officers. We want to have the place fully staffed, both in public works, police department. And if we did, what this shows you is the reality of where we would be. We need to know where we would be. Because if you leave today and tell the staff, hire all of these people, this is where we will be, if we can do that. Now, the reality is, we might only get to hire half of them. And then next year, you'll be saying, oh, see, the deficit was only half that much. Well, okay, you're right, but that's because we didn't hire 5 people, which is the conversation you could have prior to budgeting. Freezing new hires. And by the way, one of the reasons why, over the last decade, or maybe a little less, the last administration didn't hire a lot of open positions, and not in a timely manner. Cherry Street, you authorized money to be spent on Cherry Street multiple times. It was never done. Guess what? That shows projected costs, actual cost. You didn't spend it, or the previous administration didn't. If they would have done everything you authorized, we would have been in a huge deficit every time. This is about doing it right. Doing what we intend to actually spend, what we can afford to actually spend, and moving forward. We've been closer to reality with this budget than in the past few years. We've changed the assumptions, we've heard the concerns from before. We're not rehashing those things. This is reality. This is sales tax growth. This is wage growth. This is cost growth. This is hiring everybody. That's where this would be. If you're not going to hire everybody, then you can lower that number. But that's your decision.
One correction, it was July of 25, correct?
My apologies. October 2025 was when we started losing.
Yeah, July of 25 was the last time we hired an officer.
Correct, yeah.
So it's been over a year, nearly, just about?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I still don't understand how, when we got our April, our treasurer report, it shows that we've only used 66, or is it 61% of our funds on expenditures. If we've only spent 61% of that money, how are we anticipating a loss?
Are you looking at 61% of the general fund?
Just as expenditures budget versus actual.
There again, I'll have to look at the,
I think that one has everything in it, correct?
Yes, it does. It has the cemetery, the police, the general fund,
It's got it.
sanitation, all that.
61 the bottom?
Yeah, it says the percentage of funds used, 61%.
Okay.
Sure.
I mean, again, we don't, whether it's if that's a total funds, I mean.
Right, but this is in April. I don't understand how we can be only have, where we're at, where we only use 61% of the funds and can be in a hole.
Oh, I see. So
see?
this does have everything here. So it also has the full capital, which is also showing only a 45%. So it looks like it's.
So in April, we didn't have this street paved out here, which cost us $100,000. I mean, and we don't pave streets every month. So, I mean, again, we don't,
Okay.
when you're talking about the entirety of the budget, with a $200,000, $300,000 project that hits in May, you're going to go from 60% to 85% spent in one budget item.
Okay, board.
Does the streets come out of the streets fund?
What she's referring to is all funds, that's what she just said. So that would be all funds, including streets, yep. And she said that all funds, only 61% was expended, and I'm suggesting that this and other projects that have happened over the last 2 months probably, I would imagine, contributed to that. Again, not everything hits on a month-by-month basis. In the spring building season, once March 15th hits, asphalt plants are open and things start going, I mean, we start spending a lot of money that you authorized last July.
And I know law enforcement's like, it's a hot topic, but there's several of us in here that's been in law enforcement for over a couple of decades now, and what what people don't realize is, out of this general fund, is emergency services are the ones that come out of that general fund. And, you know, thankfully, we don't have fire departments or EMS like a lot of states do, you know, that you have to deal with as well with that general fund. So, you know, it's not, no one wants to cut anything. It's trying to make a responsible decision that helps us succeed as we move into the future. And this is a pleasant surprise to have Chief Tenner here with us.
I flew him in from this
Yes.
undisclosed location, just for you.
Yeah, for a brief period.
Yes. And I know that he had submitted some sort of a budget saving plan here, was it a couple months ago?
Yeah.
Or so. Could you help kind of explain that to us, kind of in better detail that might help people understand what kind of your thoughts were on that?
So part of that plan revolved around saving some of the employee salaries to provide pay raises and incentives for the officers that were remaining. Not eliminating positions, but leaving them open, while also using those open funds to help fund and provide these starting salaries and to start to create other positions, which would still save the city. I can't remember, I would have to look back at my paperwork, but it would have still saved the city $100,000, probably $110,000, as compared to the at the time, the $260,000. But that was replacing a few positions, adding a few positions, adding more depth in our ranks, while also providing pay raises for everyone to help incentivize and retain the talent that we have. That was a proposal to be submitted for consideration.
Just so we're clear, what was there was still a change in headcount
Yes.
in the department?
Yes. Yes.
How many positions?
Yes, it was going from the 29 positions, and instead instead of having 5 patrol officers on each shift, there would be 4 road officers, and dropping one of the detective positions as well. And changing the structure within the patrol division to have a patrol sergeant, a corporal, and patrol officers, and the detective bureau to shift to a detective sergeant position like many other agencies in our region, versus a detective lieutenant position, and then having 3 detectives versus 4.
Ultimately, the headcount went from 29 to 24.
So in effect, we are cutting some positions.
Not really cutting, just saving, yes, just reorganizing, and
Well, let's just be clear, there's
also
5 less people that will work for the
Yeah.
city at that point.
Yeah, well, and when I say cutting, we're taking those.
also implementing a part-time officer program as well, to where we train
5 less positions, not people. They're not filled right now.
Right, we have 9 open positions, so yes.
and they wouldn't be gone. We would be using those patrol staffs, as well as those part-time officers, to actually be paid, and not be paying the insurance benefits, not be paying the retirement benefits to the part-time employee, but looking for that 5-year plan and continuing to add police personnel from that number moving forward.
As the funding becomes available.
Yes. That way it's not such a shock to the system as what's happened with our city in the past. We had a 17-year deficit of not having basic computer technology in our vehicles, and then we bridged that gap all in one go, and that put a huge strain on this general fund. It needed to happen, but that should have been something that was implemented over time, and that's kind of the idea behind that, is to not eliminate the positions, but to try to work the best that we can with both sides.
Chief, you're talking about, not getting rid of people, but reorganizing some of the positions and such. How are we able to do that if, I keep seeing online, the workload has increased so much? Can you address that? Is that true, or has AI kind of helped reduce that workload a little bit?
I would believe that AI has helped with that, but we are in the busy months of the year right now.
Yeah.
This is probably, I haven't been able to see the numbers for the past month, but I can definitely tell you leading up to, yes, it's busier than it definitely was over the winter months.
Compared to prior years, though?
Compared to prior years, that kind of depends on how things are actually reported, because we went a couple years ago where we had 1,500 police reports taken, and last year, not including accidents, crashes, we had 991 reports taken. So that's a crash report is just as time consuming, if not more so sometimes. You all know that. But those numbers, every year is different. Every year has been different. So with our population going up, looking at call volume and looking at actual reports that are taken, it depends on the year. 3 years ago, we had way more police reports taken than we did last year.
Gotcha.
And that's when we were at 12,000 people versus being at 16,000 now.
Yeah. So the increase in population doesn't necessarily correspond to a higher work volume per se. It just depends on the year and...
It depends on the year, and it also depends on, do we have officers actually working to be able to do extra duties versus just being responsive and going call to call to call. If they're just being responsive and just going call to call, there's not going to be self-initiated activity that's going to be attached to that. And that it just depends on the officer availability at that point.
Thanks, sir.
Chief, with the positions that are open right now, you said we can't fill them, apparently. What is the current strain on the officers right now doing all this things?
What is the current strain?
Yeah, how they, I know when you add more and more, the stress level gets higher and higher and higher. Are they able to cope with it? Are they able to, without these positions?
It becomes ever more challenging because you have officers who want to come in, they want to do their job, and that's for a 42-hour work week. But then these same officers, when we're so short-handed, that now they're putting in a 50 or plus hour work week easily. It interferes with their time with their family. It interferes with other obligations that they might have. Yes, it creates a lot more stress, not only just to the officer. It creates a great deal of stress to the family. And the issue that we have is not being able to even fill the positions because we demand that we're not going to lower our standards and just hire somebody, because then that's just going to put the city in a bad position. We want to have qualified candidates, we want to attract them, and we want to be able to retain them. The current pay structure, being part of that issue, seeing what agencies right down the road from us have, creates an even bigger strain. To where we have experienced personnel now. We have a very young police force because since 2020, we experienced practically a 98% turnover rate at one point in time. So now our most experienced, besides one officer who's stayed loyal to our city since 2002, all the other patrol officer positions have very minimal experience here, 4 years, 5 years at the most. And in that, we have a very young force that is now being tasked to continue to do these extra things. And when we can't retain them, because other agencies are saying, we'll start you at, you have experience, we will start you at $8,000 or more. So you look at the agency's initial starting salary or their lateral entry salary benefits, and our officers who gain the experience now become more valuable to these agencies that can automatically start them at $8,000 or more. That's where we really test the issues that we're running into.
Chief, if we were to go with your proposal where we got rid of some of the full-time positions and, for lack of a better word, just cut their full-time benefits and everything, not saying we're gonna cut the position altogether, but get rid of those benefits, the cost of hiring them on for a full 40 hours a week, et cetera, and increase the wages of some of our other guys, would that also help with some of the burnout, because we'd actually have the staffing to fill where other guys have to do overtime right now?
Talking about implementing part-time personnel into the program.
Yeah.
Yes, that definitely would help.
Awesome.
It's just a matter of being able to get the right number to be able to actually fill that.
Gotcha, thank you.
How many part-timers are you looking at in regards to filling where it's taking strain off our full-time officers?
I believe the plan had requested 3 and then an additional police personnel, like a police personnel assistant that was going to handle all fleet management and take some of that headache off of our stranded staff to do all of our internet services and our computer maintenance stuff and manage our vehicle fleet and to do those administrative duties.
Chief, I may have this and I just don't realize it, but do I have that plan, or is that plan accessible for review?
I had submitted that plan to the city administrator.
So Chief left town, he gave us the plan. I've gone through it, kind of waiting to see, Chief when Chief's gonna come back. We haven't really had an intention to have an interim chief try to implement this. Because it doesn't just include, removing positions and wages. As he mentioned, it's an entire restructuring. So there's going to be an evaluation of staff, there's going to be corporals, that whole restructuring is going to be something that we would like the chief to be obviously part of. I don't want him to come back with all new supervisors that he didn't have a say in and didn't participate in that process. So.
On that note, Chief, are you anticipating us appointing a major during your appointment or no?
No. And I will say one other thing. No, we're not going to appoint a major while he's gone.
I figured. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page.
The other thing I think is, again, also important, as much as so we've debated or discussed the fact that we've not realized this deficit previously. If we do implement this plan with our current funding, the chief has already said his plan will save the city we'll say $150,000. We still have $810,000 deficit. We have 5 less full-time police positions and an $850,000 deficit. So I don't think, it's not a matter of whether or not the plan should be implemented. It's a matter of, I think this is something that we should be striving for, recognizing that we still have a revenue issue. We still have a funding issue if we're going to accomplish this. The fact of the matter is, his plan will solve our staffing problems and will solve our retention problems, which will mean we will see the deficit. The only thing saving us right now is that we have a staffing problem. We don't want a staffing problem, but we have to supplement that or with something else.
Yeah, I got a quick question. You had mentioned that it was $280-something thousand that you could take like $100,000 and give it to the salaries of the officers, right? was it 29 that you said?
Yes, sir, that was for 29.
Okay, there's 2,184 hours in a year for 42-hour weeks for officers. And for 29 officers, it comes to a whopping $1.57 an hour increase. I guess my question being is that, is $1.50 gonna make it better for anybody with a bigger workload? One, and what are the, and this goes for both you guys, when word gets out that, hey, we don't have as many police as we used to, do you think crime's gonna go up?
So the actual plan that I had submitted took the officer's starting salary from $61,000 to $70,000 per officer per year for just a regular patrol officer. And then corporals received a higher increase, sergeants received a higher increase, lieutenants all the way up to the chief. That's where actually making us competitive with other agencies of lateral transferability, that's where that number became what we wanted to try to strive toward to set our goals to. Adding the part-time personnel to help supplement those officers to ensure that people can actually have vacation, to ensure that people can actually take the day off if they're sick and not be so short-handed to where they're working when they probably shouldn't be working because they're sick or because other things are going on, but we don't want to drop below 3 people on a patrol shift. That's the strengths that they're at currently right now. Right now, those constraints are, these guys are putting in double, triple, just to cover shifts, to cover special events, to cover those extra duties that are falling on their shoulders to handle. The whole idea was incentivize it a little bit more and to now these personnel, that's going to make them want to have more buy-in to this agency. That's going to make them want to put out more for this agency versus just coming in, doing their job and being done and leaving. I understand your thought to, well, if we have 4 less people in the department, that could make, that look like crime is going to increase. But when you look at the reports that were taken compared to the workload over the past 3 years, it has consistently went down. And a big contributing factor to that is doing our hazardous moving violation traffic grants. Now we can't even hardly get our guys to be able to come in on their off time to do those hazardous moving vehicle grants, because when they did that, that provided the city an extra 950 plus hours of patrol service just to go out and work these traffic grants. So we increased our officer presence through those traffic grants, and it's proof in the pudding that it shows that you see more police, you think, okay, maybe I want to do a crime somewhere else. But now it's even getting hard for us to even be able to complete those, to be able to do that stuff.
With that being said, how do you expect to get the part-time help, or is it just part-time office?
No, part-time patrol officers would go through the same hiring process that we would have. They would just know that they would come in on a specific pay scale, and they would know that they would not work full-time hours, that they could work up to 32 hours, not to exceed that. Otherwise, then they're entitled to those full-time benefits and to be able to work and use them where we need to plug and play. Whenever we are short of shift, or if we're wanting to do a little extra directed patrols and have an extra body there, to have somebody do that, to be able to reach out to them. One thing that we did when I very first started here, I was a part-time patrol officer, and I would get calls at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey, we have a prisoner to be picked up in St. Louis County. Do you want to go pick them up? absolutely, I'll do it. And the reason why we used our part-time personnel for that is that way our full-time staff remained staffed and patrolling the city. Now now a patrol sergeant didn't have to say, well, we're going to be short for 3.5 hours while they do this prisoner transport. They would call a part-time person in. That part-time person would come in, get a car, go, pick up the prisoner, process them, bring them back, do whatever they had to do. And that never affected the regular staff that was working. It's those types of things throughout a shift. And that's why when the questions get asked about productivity, how many reports, and the reason why those numbers fluctuate so much is because if you don't have that, yeah, on paper, we might have a shift that has 5 people, but they might have 5 people on that shift, but that night they're working with 3 people because one person is on vacation, another person is sick, so they're down to 3, and then now, hey, we have a prisoner pickup at whatever. Well, we either will run shorter for that period of time, or we're going to push it off to the day shift. Well, the day shift comes in, they only have 3 guys on because currently not able to even fill the shift staffing. So now, can they actually afford to go do that prisoner pickup transport? It's those types of things that a part-time program really helps.
If it's being difficult to hire somebody full-time, you think it'd be difficult to hire somebody part-time?
If we're looking for people who want the experience or looking for people who don't necessarily want to go crazy after it, but if, oh yeah, I'll come in, I'll work code enforcement. We got complaints all day, every day about tall grass, about derelict vehicles, about all this. Yeah, let's okay, yeah, I'll work that. It's a certain type of, it's going to attract a different, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's depending on the assignment, that's going to be what you're looking for attracting. A lot of times, young people just out of the academy, just like me, or people who are older in their career, they don't want a full-time job, but they still want something to do to stay busy. Those are the types of positions that typically you see a lot of part-time people apply for.
To feed off Chief there, the part-time program plays a huge part in all departments in this region. You know, for the sheriff's office, I'd say 75% of our patrol unit works part-time somewhere.
Yep.
You also have officers that are not full-time somewhere, but have their post license. And so they have a full-time job working in the business community or something like that, but they still have their police officer certification license in the state of Missouri, and they hold that license and they work part-time somewhere to hold on to that license. So the part-time program is a very important program that would be very beneficial here in the city.
Do you still have the uniform and the training cost for the part-time?
Yes, sir.
Which is, that's pretty expensive just per employee, isn't it?
So each police officer has to receive 24 hours of continued education every year. The way that we are structured, short of going and getting your firearms certification and your firearms training, the rest of that basic training, like many other agencies have shifted to get at least 24 hours in specific areas, a lot of that is done online. Any of the associated costs that we do in our training budget that is extra to doing those online courses are trying to help train and mold people for different opportunities, promotions. That's where a lot of that training budget money goes to. If an officer is very interested in narcotic enforcement, we might send them to a very specific specialized school for that. Depending on if they're showing that they're deserving of that course, of that class. Same thing with field training officers, same thing with first line supervision, with management development courses, command colleges, all of that stuff are very specific structured courses, and yes, that could be something that we run into, but also with a part-time person, yes, they can get the uniform, they can get the basic necessity equipment that they need, but being a part-time officer, do they have to have the exact same clothing allowance? Do they have to have those extra things? So those are all add-ons that can be looked at and to be determined on, what is the best way to make sure that they're properly trained, they're properly equipped, because whether you're a part-time or full-time person, 24 hours of continued education is bare minimum, and I've never been a proponent of that. I've always been a proponent of you get as much training as you possibly can, because the more training that you get, the more competent, the more professional you're going to be. And you're only going to help insulate the city from liability by being more highly trained versus just hire somebody just to fill a seat.
The city pays for the training and the uniforms, correct?
Yes, sir.
But what does the uniform usually cost? Because I think in the last meeting, we talked about cutting some of the training.
No, we specifically said we were not cutting training.
Any training.
There was no conversation about cutting training. Only hiring freeze.
So
Positions that are not filled currently, some of which haven't been filled for years.
we would still incur the cost of the training and the uniforms, correct?
So for
Not for people who don't work here.
So like for part-timers, we're talking about part-timers, so I keep my post license up. I pay out of my own pocket to Missouri Sheriff's Association, I think it's $200 a year. But I get on and I do online training, and then I go qualify with the Sheriff's Office when we qualify on their firearms. That checks my box for my 24 required hours.
I was just curious because if we're hiring part-time, we're not going to supply the training or the uniforms. It's kind of like, right now, they take the cars home because it's a perk. No more than that, it's a perk. So they take the cars home, gas is $4 a gallon. That's a tremendous cost right there.
Yeah, they won't be.
If we had a part-time officer here, they would have to have everything that a full-time officer would have.
I'm talking about the people in the city now that take home vehicles.
Right.
The cost of diesel and the cost of gasoline is a tremendous cost. We got some people who drive 60 miles a day, we got some who drive 40 and everything in between. So, $4 a gallon for gas and almost $6 for diesel. That adds up quick, real quick. That's a savings.
Yeah, I don't think we would be considering that for a part-time officer, though.
No, I'm not talking about part-time, I'm just talking about everybody in general.
I thought we were talking about the part-time positions, I'm sorry.
Everybody in general, that's the savings right there. Do we want to continue doing that?
Are you talking about parking the cars, like no more take home, is that what you're talking about?
Right, something along that line. I think we have to tighten up or restructure the way we allow people to take vehicles home and that kind of thing. I mean, there's wear and tear on all these vehicles, the mileage, the gas. It's expensive.
Just for informational purposes for the board, when we do talk about giving more money, this will be on top of whatever raise is already built into the system. And then I have already been approached by other departments that are saying if the police officers get a raise, they will also be requesting raises. So, just an FYI.
Well, I will say this, Dennis, one thing I want to make sure that we could try to do an analysis, though we don't track mileage for take-home vehicles. I mean, we can, I guess, run everybody's house through Google Maps and try to estimate how many miles are being done through the take-home. But it would be hard for us probably to quantify what the savings would be. It would be a savings. I'm just telling you guys up front. I could imagine
Every take-home vehicle, not just police. Every take-home vehicle in the city.
So, point being, we would have to run every employee's take-home vehicle through Google Maps, through the miles per gallon efficiency of their vehicles, and try to estimate how much, because all our fuel costs are just together. We don't keep a mileage log, so we would have to it'd be a considerable amount of effort. I don't imagine you would save that much money. I mean, you would obviously save money, but
Well, just as a reminder, we all know this, it's the magic words, the previous boards. But the previous boards did talk about that's a perk for getting us police officers, their take-home vehicles, so.
I agree. I'm just saying, if there's ways that they're always talking about cutting money, there's all kinds of ways to save money. I mean, right now, it seems like the topic of the conversation is the police department. But none of the other departments are in there. That we're talking about cutting this and cutting that.
The biggest reason is because, you know,
Because they're big.
they're paid out of, other departments are generally paid out of sewer funds, which isn't in a deficit, street funds, which we don't have a problem with. That's generally why the police department's being talked about the most.
I mean, I think the other thing you have to not discount, I mean, you're welcome to go in and tell an employee that they have to quit so that a phantom position that is not actually hired in another department gets to stay. I mean, we have, other departments have one or two employees.
Supervisory positions.
True. But other departments have 1, 2, or 3 people in them. And this, cutting all of the activities of one of those departments, puts a tremendous amount of strain on that department or that one person that's left. In some cases, there's only one person that does it. It's going to be awfully hard to do without that one person. We already have hard times in some departments when people go on vacation, or maternity leave, or sick. So, and as we've already discussed, whether it's the building department or other departments that support, a lot of the growth, business licensing, et cetera, around the city, as the city continues to grow, the work that those individuals do just continues to grow as well. So, I don't think anybody in the staff certainly is discounting that we need to continue to hire more officers. I think the purpose of the projections and the conversation continues to revolve around this city. We've talked about the growth. The revenue growth has not kept up with the needs of the city. The city both has a tremendous amount of old infrastructure, which is very expensive to replace, maintain, and upkeep. It also requires a lot of people to do so. We also have a lot of new people, new streets, all of that comes with the growth that we have to support. And we know that, again, these subdivisions, 100 household subdivision, 100 household subdivision brings in millions of dollars in liabilities to the city and generates less tax dollars than Seven would by itself. We will be taking 5, 10 lane miles of streets and maintaining that for the rest of our lives on the same amount of money that Seven Brew gets us by itself. That's the reality of the way again, going back to the first conversation, our taxation is set up in a way that people moving here and homes here are not taxed very highly. They pay very little to the city. I don't want to hear about Lincoln County schools. Great, I pay that too. But everybody who pays Lincoln County schools does not pay for our officer salaries, does not pay for our streets to be maintained, does not pay for the water quality, sewer plant, doesn't pay for any of that. What does pay for it is that 17 cents, which I've also provided you guys with. And so just to be clear, because I don't think I went over this with everybody, I did provide everybody with an analysis of 7 random homes in your wards that indicates both what Zillow claims your house is worth, or not your house, the house is on that street. The assessor says your value of your house is, what you've paid to the city, giving away the secret, what the residents pay to the city every year, and what an increase by removing the rollback would be to those individual homes.
I mean, I don't care if they know. My house is the first one on there. It looks like I paid $21.71 to the city last year.
You'd pay an extra 19 if the rollback didn't occur.
And the reason why I put the Zillow price on there, because I think something that's important for people to recognize, when they start looking at, what is this conversation about property tax increase cost me? Most people will say, well, I know what I paid for my house, or I know what Zillow paid, or says I paid for my house, or I get an email from Golden Oak Lending every day saying, you want to refinance? You know, we hear your house is worth X amount of dollars. And then you go, James told me the formula, I'll calculate it. And you go, oh, wow, okay, that's how much it's going to cost me. Well, almost every single one of those homes, the assessed values are 25 to 50% less than what Zillow or Golden Oak Lending would tell you. Because that's what Kevin Bishop, who's the only one that matters, our county assessor, says your house is worth. That's what your assessed taxes are. Not what Zillow says your house is worth, but what the assessor says. So I think it's important to recognize that, because if we start looking at what does this cost the average resident of Troy, the average resident of Troy, we don't really know what the assessor says it's worth, but you know, the fact of the matter is the average household is probably about $200 to $225 in Troy, the average price of the household. If you ask Zillow, it says $300, but that's the zip code, that's not the city limits. And again, that's not what the assessor says the house is worth. So we're looking at a cross-section of Troy residents, what they would pay if you decided to end the rollback. Probably the highest, some of the highest value homes in Troy, $55, $60. Some of the old Troy, $15 to $25 a year to save 5 police positions.
James, does this also include, like, would the rollback include vehicles and stuff like that too, or is it just real estate property taxes? I mean, I know vehicles are typically negligible.
So it would include all.
Vehicles, okay. So like I said, it's normally negligible, a few cents on the dollar.
Well, 3 cents, yeah, on a, I guess it depends what kind of ride you're rolling in, right? I mean, I did see a Cybertruck rolling down 47 the other day, so that person might pay a few dollars more. The rest of us, on our 5 to 10-year-old vehicles, yeah, I don't know, $5 or $10 more a year, I guess.
15 to 16 is mine, but
my 2002 regular, it's not assessed for anything.
And I would like to piggyback back off of a previous question when we're talking about fuel and vehicles and take-homes. I can definitely tell you that it's not a full, complete vehicle take-home program, but the vehicle take-home program that we have is definitely a huge incentive for our personnel that they really enjoy, that they like. We pretty much practically have a new patrol fleet, and that has really helped over the past few years. I can definitely tell you, because we've been 8 people short since October of last year, that we have several vehicles that are using half of the gas and using half of the mileage that normally would be being put on them, because even our fuel consumption, we are $10,000 below what we had budgeted for last year, which was also an increase to the year previous when gas prices last time went way up. So currently having less officers has been helping the city in that type of an area as well. The new vehicles that we have, most of the stuff that's being worked on when it needs to be worked on is being done under warranties. And that's kind of a cost saving for us as well. So, but we currently have patrol vehicles that are sitting out there that are not getting used half of the time.
Well, that's just brought up another important. It's always been a thorn in my side. Who changes the oil for this?
That's a very good question. We currently go outside the city to have that service done.
The reason I ask that, because years ago, it used to be done at the city shed. And since Joey retired, the person that took his place doesn't want to, so he doesn't. That's what, about $100 per vehicle for an oil change?
$120.
$120 per vehicle. when they can buy that stuff by 55-gallon drum and bolt in the same way with the hall filters, because let's face back, they're all the same pretty much now, so you can buy the hall filters and bolt too, and save a tremendous amount of money. Just right there.
Part of that issue with us as well has been actually having ASE certified mechanics, since we are operating vehicles that have to be maintained and they have to fit those very tight tolerances. We want to have somebody who's competent and actually trained to be able to do those services as well.
All right, we've been at this a little over an hour. I can feel a little restless. Let's take a 5-minute break. When we come back, why don't we transition over to the capital improvements, and then we'll come back and visit this. Okay? All
So, well, yeah, she's not in labor, and yesterday I was thinking, because I went to the appointment at the doctor's, we're probably going to do some Monday. So, thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, first one. 4 years. So we've been trying this year, we're excited. Of course, it couldn't come there like a busier time in my life, because it's probably won't be the busiest one. But it's busy, so yeah. Now, is Mrs. Barnes fine? Or am I going to my parents are working. My dad is. I brought that guy. You smell over there.
Just walk away. It's actually going to be fine. I was going to say I'm sorry, you're still in there? Yeah, but they don't hold. Greg next like one time, he came out and so they.
Noticed that you've been doing a lot of physical activity?
Yes. Yeah, I've, James. Definitely been busy. 04, wake up, DT.
Not really great, not, no.
Using your feet to go everywhere. It adds up.
I got shoes on, you can do that. No. I can feel the cheese.
So she's there.
All of 05. Yeah, that's the same year as and then all of 05.
One of my guys
you for doing that. It saves a lot of trouble. We're missing one. Oh, yeah.
Now I think, I'm not sure what's a long way from there.
This is, that first one.
The original one was like 40,000.
This one, I know for a fact you're gonna take all. I didn't pay that, I'll tell you that.
I didn't say what
I didn't pay that.
Oh, no, I don't. He bought that transition over to capital improvements, which should be a much more sunshiny conversation. And then after capital improvements, we will need some version of direction to give to the city staff so we can begin working on this. As a reminder, this will not be ready for the normal meeting on the 15th. We will have to schedule a special meeting. So I know it's only the 3rd of June. We do have to give directions to our staff to get moving on this so we can finish it before the statutory limits at the end of the month. So, with that being said, let's go talk about capital improvements.
So, capital improvements, we have our individual department heads here to talk about some of the requests that we have this year. Capital improvements are one of those things that is always an infinite request. There is never enough money to do all the streets you'd like to do, enough, sewer lines and water lines we'd like to replace. Part of that is going to be identifying a plan for what's the best approach for either street repairs or replacement, etc. One of the things I would remind you, you might recall that a couple months ago we approved payment. We had actually already budgeted for it, but you guys approved payment to First Step Pavement Management, who is currently in the process of coming through and driving all of our streets with their special pool vehicle, doing an assessment of all of our street pavement surfaces, and then we're going to have a very good detailed list of potholes, surface cracking, alligator cracking, pavement failures, asphalt failures, all around the city. It'll give us an opportunity to estimate what those costs will be, and then our plan is internally to try and put together what a replacement plan for that would be going forward. Trying to use all of those metrics to plan for the best return on our investment for working on the streets. And it will also tell us, if we have enough money even going forward, with the current condition of the streets and the current rate of deterioration, whether or not we'll project on having enough money. Streets and other things like that are always basically, it's a little bit subjective. It's how bad do you think the streets are versus the person who drives them versus the person who looks at it. Everybody always wants to drive out on a street just like Capogre is right now, but we also realize that streets that are rideable and not failing or collapsing or laden with potholes are, even if it doesn't look as pretty as Capogre right now, it's obviously probably not a priority to fix. So those are conversations we're going to be having over the next year, especially after we get that data here in the next month, I believe we said. So we're really excited. We'll be sharing that with the board. We'll be sharing that publicly. We're going to put the map out there. It's got all the cool color codes so people can look at it and see where the worst is in the city, where all the potholes are in the city, where all the failures are. So it's going to be very helpful in that regard for our planning purposes. But today, all we're going to be able to really talk about is we see how much capital improvement money we get in. We're going to try to allocate an amount of money for that for a few projects that we have currently going on as it pertains to streets. And we also have some requests really from parks. We don't have any requests from the building department this year, nor do we have any requests from PD, at least in the large requests. So with that, Ryan, I know you have a list of...
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what on the main sheet of this said. Is the capital equipment that's already in there?
Anything that you put in the SharePoint document.
Under capital?
Under capital.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's not under capital. Wherever you put it is where it remains. It's just a question now of whether we want to move it to capital.
Oh, okay, yes. Couple small, I don't have a lot of big ticket items. No vehicles, no crazy expenditures. We talked last week a little bit about the pool resurfacing, about maybe doing that. James and I talked about it. It doesn't sound like that's a capital necessarily, it's more of a maintenance, ongoing issue.
We're gonna have to, we're still flushing that out, but we do need to have the pool resurfaced. So the pool, once they cleaned it out this year, it was rough and couldn't have got it done in time for swim
More
season.
of a, early spring and late fall, once it's drained kind of project, not 2 weeks before you put it. It's kind of hard to paint it when it's full of water.
But it's a $30,000?
I got a high estimate. I told the guy, don't be scared, just because the cost of everything's going. By the time we get to it, I don't want to be under funded. So it was like 45, I think, 46. But capital that I'm looking at equipment-wise, we're about 9 years removed from buying a mower at the cemetery. I'd like to get another mower. Cemetery, that's 15 grand. A couple small things, garage doors and partitions for the park bathrooms. I kind of put a blanket amount for partitions, like 10 grand, just because I don't know exactly what style, and once I bid it out, I'll have more of an idea how far that'll take me. But at least get the ball rolling on to kind of redo some of those bathrooms. A couple of pieces of equipment, an angle burn for doing sidewalks, walking trails, parking lots, things like that, to try to keep those up so that we're not seal coating and striping and things like that. At least they'll still look clean and not have gravel all over them, stuff like that we can actually hit and maintain. A walk behind mower kind of split between parks and cemetery for some of those wet spots in the cemetery that we can't get a rider in there. At least we can walk it. It's a lot easier than having a guy out there break his back weeding half an acre at a time. We can also use it at the pool. We can use it for steep inclines like out here in front of City Hall. Cameras, I put about 5,000 in for cameras. Try to hit some hot spots. I got a few bids on those already.
How much did you say?
5,000. It's kind of a testing process, seeing as how we don't have Wi-Fi anywhere. We can go a route where we're going to have to be a DVR system, but you're only going to pull that info after the fact. If we do a self-service system, obviously they're more expensive. You got a monthly tied to it for the service. So I'm still kind of flushing out which one might be a better option, more bang for your buck if you do the DVR, kind of a more in time, get an idea of what's going on if you go the other route.
Those would be here, correct?
Those would, I could probably hit the hot spots first and see how far that goes.
The DVR would be
No, it wouldn't, it would be at the location. You'd have to actually go and pull it from there.
They thought about locks for the doors, and it's
Oh, yeah.
sometimes automatically.
Yep, I've also got a little bit for automatic locks, but I put that in maintenance, because you're replacing door locks, it's not really I don't think it's a capital. I really don't think, I mean, if you're well, take it over there, I mean.
You know, if we were able to wrap it into like a renovation project or something, if it was a bigger project, but yeah, if you're just doing that, it's kind of hard to justify it.
Really the only other, and those are, you know, you're talking 5,000, 6,000 a whack for those. Shade structures for the pool, those are original. So they're 2011, they probably went up. Pool opened in 12, so they've definitely served their time. They're about 20 grand. I would think that's like a roof. I would think that would be a capital item. I mean, that's not an ongoing maintenance thing. That's not like a every 3-year rotation. That's, you know, you're looking at 15 years.
Because they originally lasted quite a while.
Yeah, I knock on wood, I don't have any wood around here, but that's kind of unbelievable. And that's pretty much the extent of my.
Is there any question for Ryan? You know, last year we had a lot of conversation because there was a number of vehicles, larger implements, in all the departments. You know, this year, there's not really a lot. Most of it's going to be various, you know, construction projects, overlays, stuff like that, which we'll talk about just briefly with Mr. Rockwell. So, anything else for Mr. Howell?
Years and years and years ago, I think when Ryan was first hired, when the pool was coming in, that was considered to be one of the things that our new parks director would be doing, would be managing the pool. What did the pool management, what exactly did they do for the $250,000 that we give them?
So that $250,000 pays for all the lifeguards,
Pays their salary?
yeah,
And their certification.
and the certifications, their insurance through their company. So lifeguards, and then their day-to-day, like their manager, their regional manager, all the testing, water sampling, stuff like that, they take it down to their offices, they do all that stuff, kind of like what Jared has to do with sewer plant. We have to test all that water daily.
Do they manage all the chemicals?
Chemical deliveries, things like that.
They're the ones that actually do the testing,
Yep.
adding chemicals,
Yep.
subtracting the chemicals.
Yep.
So it removes all liability from the city.
Yeah, on that side.
How many riding mowers do you guys usually keep in stock?
That's a good question. Cemetery, right now, we have 2. One's on its last leg. It's really old. The other one's okay. It's starting to have normal breakdown things. Parks, right now we bought a new one last year to kind of get rid of the tractor, because the tractor was toast. We got rid of that wing, sold it on Purple Wave. We got, I'd say 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we've got 5 zero turns for parks.
And then this one's one more, is it on this? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
One to rotate out?
Yes, at the cemetery.
Okay.
That would be a cemetery.
That'd be cemetery.
I know I brought this up in the past, but I know they had the tractor, you said the tractor shop.
Yeah, we dumped some money too. We had to rebuild the back end, rebuilt twice. And
What year was it?
I had to look. I think it was like early 2000s.
What did you say?
A little more than that.
Dollars was on it?
I'm sorry. I know chemicals have gotten expensive.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys use up, or are we still paying a company to do that?
So we buy the chemicals from the company that, it's kind of like the parent company of our contract for the lifeguards.
Oh, okay,
They
it's part of
deliver.
that then?
It's not part of it, it's budgeted separate, but it still comes from the same company, if that kind of makes sense.
Westport?
Westport. But yeah, I think we've been in budget on chemicals pretty close every year. I try to raise it just because I know, yeah.
So do they put them in an adjustment and
Yes.
everything too?
Kind of like Dennis said, they take the liability from, they do the testing, so if something's off, out of whack.
Is there any way we can cut anything there?
Chemical wise, not really. I mean, I don't know how we would. I mean, the water's gotta have its,
Well, I know it's got to need a pH balance.
yeah, it's gotta be where it's gotta be.
I know one of the municipalities in St. Louis County tried to take it on themselves. They had a contract, I think with the same company that we have, and it cost them quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I've kicked that around in years past, trying to take it in-house. You know, you'd save the management fee, but you're still taking on the liability of hiring your own people. So,
The insurance will-
I mean, you're talking 20 to 30 lifeguards you'd have to hire. And in a city the size we are with, I mean, how many employees do we have? 58, give or take. So you're talking almost 50% increase in employees.
We would have to maintain those certifications and all that.
Maintain certifications, we'd have to either,
It's a lot, I mean, I will tell you, we had a pool in Ferguson that, I mean, HR, it's a lot of hiring, it's a lot of, we went to Midwest Pool Management.
and it's always
15
something I can go
years
back to
ago.
them
We
and
never
say,
looked
hey, you
back.
know, what can I cut here? What options do I have? Can we look at it a little bit?
I have to give kudos, the first day it was open, they saved 5-year-old that jumped off the diving board and didn't realize that gravity still works in the water. So they are doing a very good job for us.
Yeah, I don't get many complaints. I mean, you get complaints about everything, but they do a decent job.
Back to the tractor, I was just kind of curious, because I bought a 4400 John Deere tractor in '98 and just sold it maybe 6 months ago.
Yeah,
And we was averaging 1,000 hours a year,
yeah.
and it was still running perfect when I got rid of it. And one of the things that I talked to you about before was the gang war, the gang reel mowers. I think would probably be safer,
So I,
because they just throw things straight up, and the only thing they usually throw up is clover. But mine was a 16 footer.
Yeah.
So you cover a lot of ground really quick. You know, so in the parks, it would maybe turn around a small tree.
and it has, actually mowing's gotten a lot quicker when we went to nothing but zero turns.
There's more bodies.
Yeah, somewhat, yeah. We can mow, with the new zero turn we got, we can mow a ball field quicker with that than we can with that tractor. Just because turning radius, it's just a big piece of equipment. And we can trailer it from park to park to park, and we don't have to drive it through town and do things.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the difficulty.
Is it so?
Yeah, so.
Anything else for Parks Board? Hearing nothing? All right.
On the sewer side of things for sewer infrastructure, got money there lining. What we're looking at manhole wise is pretty comparable to what was done last year. Be roughly about 22 structures, and then a little over 200 feet of sewer main, looking at doing the CIPP lining too, which is pretty comparable to what was done last year as well, and years past for that matter as well.
Do we have a location for that?
I don't have the exact locations. I have the line sections that he had sent me, but I don't have the exact locations of which exact ones he was looking at. This was all largely based off of the survey that was done by Woodard and Kern here a few years ago, targeting areas that needed to be done, and that's what they've been working through. And so this I believe is getting close to the end of the manholes that were on that list, with this lining list they have here. The streets, like James said, the money, the numbers I put in there were based off of last year's, doing hopefully comparable to the same amount. It's hard to say exactly how many we'd be doing or exactly where we'd be doing until we get this survey back. That we're hoping to come back here in the within the next month. Should be seeing a, looks like a Google car out running around here pretty soon. Water, looking at phase 2 of the Main Street water main replacement, as well as water main replacement on Avery Street. And then as far as equipment, only real thing I have in here is an easement machine to help maintain our lines that run through wooded easements. We've got a number of lines that run through backyards or difficult access, and getting our truck to them is just not feasible. So being able to clean those lines efficiently and safely, this will help facilitate that.
What is that again?
It's on the easement machine. So it's our big jetter truck, the hose reel in front of it, it's a hose reel that we can drive to the manhole in the middle of the woods. We can take the hose from our jet truck, connect to that, and then have full function of the jet truck at the manhole without having to have 300.
Physically driving?
Yeah, it's on a track setup, and that gives us the ability to have full function of our operations right there at the manhole without having to drag 300, 400 feet of hose into the woods and then have to drag that 300, 400 feet again through the manhole as it's going. So it gives us the ability to safely clean those lines at the manhole.
How much is that?
$75,000. It's not a vac, it's just a high power pressure cleaning. And then I've got a side-by-side in here between the three departments, sewer, water, and streets. Same thing for maintaining our easements that run through the woods, helping clear right-of-ways. Camera system, sorry, our camera system that we currently have that's in the bed, or that's in our van, the components that we need for cameraing a line can be pulled out of that van, can be put in the bed of the side-by-side and taken into these backyard easements. Similar things, so we can do these lines. We've got some lines that, we may have to pull 400 or 500 feet of hose or cable off the truck in order to even start the process. So you get that far out on your camera system, you're getting pretty close to running out of hose, running out of cable, similar to our jet truck. And then just trying to pull that hose, the jet hose, that extra footage on the ground is a brutal task. So this is a much safer operation to do.
Just to reiterate, as Mr. Rockwell just mentioned, so even though we're talking about capital improvements, there are things that are capital improvements that are still, in some cases, paid out of sewer and water fund. We try to make sure we do that where we can. Obviously, again, trying to save capital improvements for any capital improvement, parks, streets, sewer, water, where we can. If we have money in sewer and water, if we have money in these other funds, we want to spend it there first, because again, that money is restricted. Capital improvements is much larger. We have a much broader place where we can spend that money across the different sorts of funds. So.
We do also have 2 tornado sirens that have not been upgraded yet, that when all the other ones throughout the city have been upgraded, these are the last 2 that have not been done, and that totals just over $27,000 for those 2 to be upgraded.
How often does they go off-road with the camera and vector?
It's case by case. There's a number of lines through our easements that have not been really hit in quite a number of years, I can't say if never, but in quite a number of years, because doing that operation, the strain on the manpower and the safety side of things has just not been there. So it's most of our Most of our operations through our easements is only on a reactive basis, and there's no proactive nature to it. So this gives us the ability to proactively maintain these systems without having to wait until there's a catastrophic failure.
So in other words, it's something we're gonna get to try to prevent problems.
Questions for Mr. Rockwell? Okay.
Now, we do have a number of potential requests from Woodard and Koenig, or from our sewer plant, one of which we really haven't decided yet how we're going to approach this very large Bluffview line project, though we did have a conversation recently that we feel pretty confident that that money wouldn't be spent until the next fiscal year anyway. So we won't have to drill down on financing and figuring that out for a while. The engineering's already been paid for. Could you remind me how much that project was approximately?
6.7 million over, but that was just the total cost for construction. We were gonna do it over a multi-year. But we figured to dry, it would be done during the summer months when it's dry, and with design just coming to an end, it's not gonna happen this summer. It would be next summer, so we're gonna hold off till next year before we start that.
So we'll probably have a conversation pre-budget so we can start getting docs
prepared
and all of that, so that it'll be fully funded for the next budget. But we'll need to have, documents prepared, bid opening, contractors probably approved and everything before we get to the mobilization and all that stuff, which will be after July 1, so.
Derek, didn't we do some kind of work behind that subdivision?
Yes, in the creek crossing, and then,
that was on the 47.
well, there's been patches, that line is 18 inches in some areas. There's been patchwork where it goes down to 15, goes back up to 20, goes back down to 12, and yeah, it's a
But it seems like it's, from my memory serves me correctly, there was something that we did back behind that subdivision 2 or 3, 4 years ago or something. Maybe it was before you came on board.
I know. We did go in and try to jet and TV that line, and they were unsuccessful. They couldn't get through it with the grease and the brakes and everything else that's in that line.
Yeah, because right about in the middle and back, if my memory serves me correctly, was where there was a real major problem.
No, there's a real major problem back there for sure.
And then the other one was right below the bridges.
Yeah, the one below the bridge was completely broken.
Right, because every time it flooded, it just
went in, to the creek. So we took care of that one first, and then, but this project proposes almost 6,000 feet from where the old plant would be all the way up behind Bluffview, all the way to 61, upsizing the pipe for future growth. And anything that's going to be a part of 47 or north of 47, future growth, that would all be taken in by that line. That basically, I mean, I know it's supposed to be an 18-inch, but when you've got sections that are 15 and 12, that's really what your capacity is when it funnels like that. So that project has to be done.
No, just out of curiosity, what do you think it potentially could cost to go underneath all 61 to get to the other side?
Oh my gosh, you're talking boring to the other side? I have no clue. I have no idea. What's that?
That'd be crazy, man.
Probably. That would be to get with DNR, how they were proposed to do it, or not DNR, to MoDOT, deal with them.
I was just wondering, because you said that proposal was for everything north of 47. And it's enough to go under 61 and that, see that being astronomical.
Yeah, that's.
Mr. Alderman Kazali, you have a question?
Yeah, and it's just a general question since we're going over this and it's kind of dawned on me. With the vehicle, Google car, whatever you might want to call it, that comes out, evaluates streets, overlays the streets, finds the potholes and everything. And I know this was a discussion during one of the meetings we had, and also I think one of the workshops about dedicating streets. My question is if this goes ahead and goes into a subdivision, evaluates the streets, finds that it is damaged, it is failing, the street's not dedicated to the city, how is it going to be handled?
So Well, just, the short answer is, part of what Ryan and his team's been working on a number of these situations is getting a punch list and working with the current owner or the developer to try and remedy whatever situations to get them dedicated. We obviously don't want them to dedicate them to us when they're severely damaged. This will help us because we're going to have clear documentation and we'll have video documentation of the quality of the streets. So we'll have their checklist, their punch list, what we've marked off, and in a video also showing what's wrong with it. Then there's going to be a conversation with, depending on if the contractor's even available. West Hampton Woods, the contractor's dead. The West Hampton Woods subdivision's already sued the estate and has gotten, I think now they've come to a settlement which is not even near enough to take care of what's wrong there. We're going to now have to have a conversation with the HOA and have a standard sort of plan for taking these over. The conversation that I've had with West Hampton Woods, and they've been amenable to, is establishing an NID, a neighborhood improvement district, to where they will, we would accept the streets, and they would accept an additional assessment on their properties to pay and restore those areas that are failing. Is it going to be a one-for-one exchange? Probably not, because it's going to be not going to be cheap, but at least it gives them skin in the game and allows the city to be able to close the book on this issue and move forward with, replacements and repairs in the future. But as it stands, if it's not infrastructure dedicated to the city does not maintain it. That is different than when they plat the subdivision, the right-of-way is dedicated to the city. Our right to cross that line on the map. When they build the streets, they still own the streets until they give it to us. We sign an ordinance that says we accept it. And that's where the discrepancy is. They platted it, it's an open right-of-way, everybody can walk on it, drive on it, but the infrastructure itself isn't technically owned by us until we accept it. And that's, I think we're at like 5 subdivisions that have partial or full streets and infrastructure that's not been dedicated. So that's a future conversation. It's going to be not a fun one either. But I think the key is, and we've been talking about this since I got here and I learned about this, West Hampton Woods has been the guinea pig, but having a process that is equally applied to all of the subdivisions in the same situation and finding out what they're willing to do and what the city's willing to do, and then telling everybody in the same situation, this is your option, right? Everybody pays an extra $50 a year on their neighborhood improvement district that will go to your streets alone for the next 30 years, something like that. That's what West Hampton Woods is looking at. And you'll see that's often what's happening in places like Fallon's doing that a lot, having CIDs and their subdivisions to take care of this sort of stuff, because then the people know that their streets are getting fixed. So.
Okay. One other thing that I forgot to add when I was mentioning all this, we do have sewer mains on Faircourt and sewer main on Cherry Street in Lincoln that are in the design phases right now. I have reached out to our engineer to find out if they may fall into a similar situation like Jared was describing of the likelihood of them being funded this year, constructed this year, may not happen. So I'm waiting to hear back from them on that, but we do have funds there associated for that.
I do have a question. So you have $1 million for 47 trunk line? What is that? Was that because the total project was $2 million for that with the headwork? Did you split it over 2 years or?
I think I just took whatever we had put in last year. I just carried it over until I knew what we were going to do.
Okay, perfect.
Kind of as a placeholder.
Perfect. So
now we'll be taking that out.
So what I would say is make that $500,000. Because that would more than cover design and first phase of bidding, because your construction of that wouldn't start till the following year.
Okay.
So it's a $2 million deal, but we could get by this year with $500,000. That would more than cover first phase.
Okay.
And then we can spread it out over the next 2 or 3 years, whatever we have to do for that.
We're gonna just say that's engineering only.
Yeah.
Would that, like, repurchase the equipment and stuff like that too?
Hold on a minute.
You just said,
Not for trunk line.
Are you thinking of bar
I'm
screen?
thinking of the, yeah, the Headworks bar screen. I thought that's what you had for that.
keep going.
Probably put glass.
Well,
It auto saved you.
It did. Well, I can fix it.
I'm not gonna get any money.
the trunk line,
If you're talking about the trunk line, then we can do away with it.
This is the bar screen, we only had 215 for that.
No, that's engineering.
Right, for the, you said, so you want to put
Yeah,
another
that
500 for that?
That should be 500, yes.
This should be?
Wow.
That's engineering, that's engineering.
Okay, because what they told me is 2 million total.
Right.
But the 500,000, or the 500,000 would cover all of the engineering and first phase bidding for that project. For the bar screen project.
So I guess last time we probably only had half of it. And
Did we extend that half last year or this
We
current
didn't.
fiscal year?
We haven't done that yet.
We plan on doing that before the end of the year?
No, we haven't started spending any of that money.
Yeah, we haven't started that one, so what he's saying is we'll be able to get that much done.
sure.
Okay, we have a project already approved for 250,000.
Yeah, because we split it last year,
Oh, okay.
correct?
I don't remember. That's right.
You split the 500 last year?
I don't.
Let me get with Brent. Okay.
Okay, but what did you just say? 500 for
He
engineering?
said, well, we'll see what we,
Yes.
because we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, right.
Right. So if if we approved 250 last year, we'll just carry that over and then we'll up that to 500.
Okay.
So we can carry that, we can carry it over from last year, that's
Yeah.
magically.
Well, it's just money when it's spent. So.
I got you. Okay.
But you don't have the...
We don't have construction in there yet.
Right, nothing for construction, but I'm talking on the trunk line project. You didn't add that to anything, correct, for this year?
The 47 trunk line?
Right.
It's on there.
It's on there.
So take it off?
Take it off.
Yeah.
All right, Jared gets nothing this year and
We're there. We're gonna get there. Well, yeah, I know what the numbers are here, but I give all the Linda input for me, so I'm not sure where they're slotted at.
Well, and I didn't put any in there.
So this is, she put it in her budget.
Okay.
In the in-code budget, but this is the request documents that we've been using internally, so. So we'll go back and make sure that those are, that your stuff's on these as well.
Okay.
These are just the breakouts that we use for the request, so. But the bar screen, to Jared's point, the bar screen project, which is extremely important, is the lift station bar screen. That's where the old plant was. Extremely important project because right now we've got a lot of stuff coming through, gets into these pumps, and if it's not screened out, then it becomes a maintenance issue on placing pumps in the future, so.
It was cut out, I guess 7, 8 years ago. There was a screen that was there, an old Headworks screen, and it was all taken apart and broken down at the time, and it was supposed to be replaced when we did the new building with the new pumps, and at the time it was taken out to cut costs. Well, it's a need, it's a must, and it's like, now or never. You've got brand new equipment sitting there, so.
Yeah.
Is that thing self-contained, like you put it in and it's good to go, there's no?
Yes, yeah. It'll run on itself and dump into a dumpster and haul off twice a week.
You haven't taken a tour of the sewer plant, it's just a process.
Go out there, count your clothes pen. Count everything. All signed.
We don't have any other, the capital improvements this year is pretty,
Oh, I thought,
What's that?
Can we not talk about the pumps and all that stuff?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought, well, was that?
That's the only other things I had was the two spare pump, or, because yesterday I had you take the one off, the
That's right.
42,000, yeah. And then we cut the 6 million for we're gonna start that next year, multi-year. And then you have a spare for Wingate. And what else am I missing? The SCADA project.
Big
correct?
brass pump rebuild.
Yeah, there's a big RAS pump rebuild. It's like an every 5-year deal we have to do. That's 45,000.
Small pump for Wingate. Small pump for Wingate.
Yeah, that's on there, spare.
What about the removing of the safety hazards?
That's correct. So at 47, the old 47 treatment plant, you've got 2 basins that are emergency storage backups, but they still have all the old catwalks and all the old railing around them. Not to mention it's an eyesore as you drive past on 47, but we had put in 50,000 to remove a lot of the safety hazards, pull all that old equipment out. People trying to walk out on them, they break through, fall through, and trying to take all that equipment out and put in new railing around them. So is it a wish list item? Of course, it is something that needs to be done, absolutely safety-wise, but if it's something we have to cut, we have to cut. But I did put it in there for this year.
SCADA site installation, that'll be the final one?
The final year, that's a 3-year project, yeah, to put SCADA at our final 2 sites at the lift station.
Oaks and...
Yes.
that's
For our new board
200,000.
members, explain SCADA.
So SCADA is just, it's a supervisory control, blah, blah, blah. Basically what it does is when you have an emergency, this system calls you through a radio feed to where you can control it from our phones and for our computers. So for like Wingate, you have 2 pumps that go down. You have 45 minutes before the 2 houses that live right by that station start flooding in the basement. So now, when SCADA calls us, we can actually get on our phones and see the issue and diagnose and turn different pumps on and do different things from our phones, saves time. So, knock on wood, since we've had the new SCADA implemented, 0 issues with flooding and 0. Yeah, I'm jinxing this for myself. So, yeah. So anyways, this was a 3-year project to do 6 lift stations, the what we call like the mission critical ones where they talk about flooding homes, and so this will be the final year of that project, the last 2.
We're completing the project.
Yep.
Which is great.
Yep. Okay, so the interrogator. Sorry, I gave her the stuff. So the very last item I have, so we have an interrogator that we land apply with, and as long as we can own that property and land apply, that's what we need to do, because the day comes that we decide that you're going to sell that ground or we can't land apply, we are going to have to start hauling solids to the city, to the landfill, and you want to talk about astronomical cost to have that hauled out daily to the landfill. So as long as we can land apply, we need to do it. We've got a interrogator that is old and falling apart, so we put in some money. We put 40,000 for an overhaul. That puts a new toolbar on it, overhauls the engine, different things like that. So, and that's the last item I have.
Are you sure?
Yes.
That's all right.
Linda, is he sure?
He's sure.
She's double checking.
Yeah, that's one of those things that we don't want to ever go down on us. It's obviously huge.
Oh, that's huge, yeah. If that thing goes down, we're hauling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
And you can spend, well, I've seen it in years before where it's happened, where we've had to haul. In fact, a month before we took over operations here, they spent close to 80,000 in 1 month hauling. So, yeah, $40,000 overhaul on an interrogator is like pennies on the dollar for, if you start hauling biosolids to the landfill.
Just to make sure you can flush your toilet.
And again, these specifically will go out of the sewer fund if and when we, exceed the sewer, what we have in our sewer fund. We always have the ability to do capital improvement, or use capital improvement, but we'll probably have that conversation next year when we start talking about the Bluffview project, because sewer plant alone is not going to be able to handle that. So we'll talk about what that looks like next spring.
Next department.
That's it.
So I know we talked about putting money in for upstairs and all that. Talk about that.
Oh, I'm sorry, you said police department, I thought you said next department. My apologies, and you're right, we did. We didn't, you haven't gotten the, you haven't been able to get an estimate yet, have you?
I've started on
I know you requested it, but we haven't gotten an estimate yet, so. I mean,
We're talking about flooring, we're talking about painting, we're talking about cabinets, everything up there.
Yeah, so we don't have an estimate yet on that, but that was something that Chief is already looking into. We'll have an estimate before our final meeting. It's,
Just the hallway's $30,000.
yeah, so it's gonna be, we'll have it for our final meeting. We'll decide at that point what we can cut out and not cut out.
Did you put in money for what we talked about in the boardroom? The displays and all of that?
Yes,
We didn't put that in capital though.
but not capital.
Not capital?
It's not enough
Yeah.
to be classified as capital.
Okay. Oh, we were talking about putting display monitors on the walls so that our citizens that come to the meetings can be more involved and more informed placing these things that we're looking at up on there so they're able to see it, not just the 7 of us on the front.
Well, if we're gonna get creative, we're gonna talk about since it's all one building, maybe we can get creative, try to say that.
I mean,
That, including that, is all part of the building.
I'd like to see the whole building redone anyway.
Well, right, but I'm saying, you know, we'll have a conversation, we'll see what we end up
Roof is
getting out.
moving, so the roof is moving forward. It will be.
It will be repaired.
Yes. He sent an email to us yesterday, and he wants to come in and get it finished ASAP.
Here's me hold my breath.
Yeah, we'll see, but he
Yeah.
is at least back.
He's at least communicating now, which he wasn't, so.
Yeah. It is. I think it's vitally important, though, that we do, I would invite all of you to please go upstairs with the police department and look at the conditions that they work in. It's pitiful, to say the least. So I think it's vitally important that we do not cut that we give them a place to work in that at least is, that I'm scared to take my dog into, let alone, work.
Yeah, it's important when we're talking about retention and recruitment.
Absolutely.
As we kind of mentioned that first meeting, that I won't say it's a low-hanging fruit, but it's something that we can do that doesn't affect the general fund, but has the same effect as, not the same effect, but a similar effect as some of these other items that we're talking about, so. Quality of life improvement. Just improving the quality of life and coming in to work every day is going to be a huge benefit.
Is that it for capital?
Yes, that actually would be, like I said, Chief Ronkowski and I talked about that the other day. He's still putting together all of those numbers. We'll get that to you before they hear actual budget.
Anything else for capital? Anybody?
Any questions or requests? All right.
Okay, now back to our other discussion. So now is the time for the board to start telling us instructions for the administration to move forward. Not everybody all at once.
What I would like to see with this is when it comes to the property tax, because the voters already voted for a 32-cent property tax, and we're paying, what, right now, 17 cents?
Correct.
Is at least starting to take a chunk out of the deficit and going with what the voters had said and go to the 32 cents. Now, looking at it based off of what this has, I took the highest and then I also took where I lived at. And you're only paying what the highest is an additional $10 more a month, and the other one's an additional, for myself, is another $9.89 a month. And
well, that was for you, it wasn't an additional, that was total.
yeah, so
Because it was only $50 additional
so,
a year.
yeah, so you're looking at, so I'm paying an additional or more, a little bit more, which isn't.
You'd be paying about $4.50
Yeah.
more.
Mine's $1.59.
So, like I said, for me, it's at least starting somewhere where we're taking a big chunk out of that deficit by going with the 32 cents.
I'll have to move out of town.
And so that's what I'm looking at, and just, like I said, get rid of the rollback, just go with the straight 32 cents.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Okay. I agree with you, I just had a ask.
And then we're adding, or we're putting back $424,785 back into the fund. And that's a start.
Yes.
Is that number 424? That would.
Yeah, it's right there. It's, if we did the increase, if you looked at the one with the no rollback on the screen, that's an additional $424,785 that we're adding back into it. That's if we go with the 32 cents.
Take up the full.
For a rollback?
So, and I apologize because Carl had been out of town, but one of the things I wanted to ask, and it might seem semantical, but it's, I don't think it is. So again, the property tax rate here is 32 cents. We set the rate every 2 years. So you're technically just setting the rate. I mean, you're not raising it, lowering it. What we were questioning is, and the rate is set by the voters at 32 cents. And so when you're coming in, you're not voting actually to raise it. You're voting to not roll it back, which is what they've typically been doing, which was rolling back the rate every other year.
We would be voting to maintain.
So in reality, I mean, you're going to get given a document that says we are going to set the rate at the voter-approved level of 32 cents. That will be the ordinance that you are going to be voting on in August, once we get the final numbers from the county assessor and the numbers from the state auditor, which allows us to set the rates finally. But
It would be a separate vote from the budget, so everybody's aware for our new members.
we did talk about whether or not we could do it now to lock this conversation in, but we don't have the final numbers from the assessor and the auditor, so we couldn't actually give you an exact.
But we can still budget.
No, you're right, you would budget for it. You just can't go, but if you go back on it, you blow up the budget. So that's the point.
Yeah,
If we get to August and we change our minds, then we're in trouble.
But, so, yeah, it may seem semantics, but I mean, again, you're setting, you won't be voting on something that says, we are going to raise the rate to blah, blah, blah. It is, you are going to set the levy at 32.06 cents per 100 assessed, or 32% millage, as, approved by the voters of the city of Troy, and then that's it. So.
Okay.
I agree with Alderman was out on that. I'm also in favor of Chief Tenner's plan for the police department. I know it's not kind of what what we've kind of gone for with the savings there, but as a law enforcement officer myself, I absolutely love his vision for this department going forward with his plan for retention and recruitment. And, I think that's key for the city moving forward. It is a savings. It does kind of help us get a little bit closer to that. First and foremost, I think what we also need to focus really hard on. I know we repealed to take that use tax off the ballot for this year, but that is still, I believe, such a huge part of our future moving forward that we have to really revisit and focus on for 2027, that plays such a vital role for the future of this city as well. And that's something that we cannot put in the rearview mirror, in the back seat, or on the back burner or something like that. We've still got to focus on that and focus on the education and things like that, to where we come to a point where we can put that back on the ballot in 2027, where the voters are actually educated as what it truly means for a city that relies on sales tax to operate. But again, I'm in support of his plan for the police department. It's like I said, it's hard to recruit, but we have to keep the ones that have invested in this city now instead of losing more and therefore putting even more of a strain on our department to where it's not going to matter how many we have, because we're going to have 2 people out there working because we don't have enough people as it is. So, we have to take what we got and try to make things better, and therefore he's got a plan right now to save us some money, but also benefit the department in the meantime, and then with the future vision as well.
All right. Next.
I went ahead and in real time, I'm just kind of going through and updating. So our rollback, getting rid of the rollback, or not doing the rollback this year would net us $424,000 approximately in general fund revenue, bringing that deficit down to about $543,000. Now, just a reminder, we've talked about this already, that there is this is with a full complement of hiring 9 open positions. Obviously, the expectation would be that we probably aren't going to get all 9 of those hired this year. So,
if we authorize the 24, that's police officers, right, Chief?
Yes.
So in your plan, the total number of authorized officers would be 24.
Full-time.
Full-time. Not counting your clerical staff. I just want to make sure that they're still there.
Correct.
Okay.
And it would also include
As he's looking, I also want to add that we can't lose focus as well, like when we were talking last week about kind of the, our goals and stuff like that. We can't lose focus that we still got to push that economic development in this town, make ourselves attractive and things like that, keep bringing that in, so we're not, we're not worried about this. We're making ourselves, we want people to come here. People want to, we want to make businesses come here. We want to be, sexy to everybody and stuff like that. So we can't lose focus. We can't lose focus of that. We got,
That should be our new slogan.
Yeah.
Boy, we're sexy.
So
sexiest thing in Lincoln County.
So we can't lose focus of that as well. We got to keep pushing.
Well, at least we now know what our mission statement is. We haven't got to that point, but to be the sexiest in Lincoln County.
So that would be 24 full-time officers and then plus 3 part-time officers and an additional, this was the part-time police operations assistant. So it would be a total of 4 part-time officers, but it would be 3 road part-time officers and 1 just dedicated to being an operations assistant. So, but it would be 24 full-time personnel.
Thoughts, feelings from the other board members that haven't spoken yet?
I feel like I'm being a little bit repetitive. We seem to tackle the toughest issue first, is personnel, and I appreciate Chief Tinter for being here and having some discussions on his vision. That's very helpful. To me, the rollback makes the most sense. That's the easiest. It takes a chunk out of that deficit. I am not against the use tax, but as I have said on record, it's going to be educate, and it's not anything that happens that we can just kind of forget about until next April or August. We got to be thinking about that tomorrow and what that process is and how do we educate and how do we look at best practices and where is it working and what did they do and how do we mold that for Troy, and I'm happy to be a part of that process. It's not something that's foreign to me, so it doesn't sound like we solved all our issues, but I'm kind of with what Alderman Gephardt and Cazetta have said, that's where I'm at, and I think it's good progress, so.
Well, one thing, when you talk about rolling back the tax day, in fact, where it was, yeah, it generates a lot of money. I guess it's the board's fault that was there at that time, that they didn't put a sunshine clause into that tax rollback. Because a lot of citizens look at that, you know, there was comments made when we made the adjustment for the trash pickup, that it affected the younger people more than it did the older people. Well, this affects all people. And a lot of people are struggling right now. The economy is not the best in the world. We wouldn't be here arguing over this, trying to get everything figured out. But there's a lot of people out there, and Troy included, that are living paycheck to paycheck. And even though that might only be another $50 a year, to some people that's major. Because after all, the trash pickup was only $5 a year and created some controversy. So I'm kind of curious, you know, I don't want to see the police force go down any at all. My concern is burnout. One of my concerns is the overworking. That's not good either. The amount of pay that they get above and beyond the regular, where I'm assuming they're getting a regular 2.5% raise, am I correct?
Correct. That's what's,
correct.
That's one step raise, yep.
Okay, so they get a 2.5% raise, but what about all the rest of the employees?
Correct. Okay. And it would also include
As he's looking, I also want to add that we can't lose focus as well, like when we were talking last week about kind of the, you know, our goals and stuff like that. We can't lose focus that we still got to push that economic development in this town, make ourselves attractive and things like that, keep bringing that in, so we're not, we're not worried about this. We're making ourselves, we want people to come here. People want to, we want to make businesses come here, want to be, sexy to everybody and stuff like that, so we can't lose focus. We can't lose focus of that, we got,
That should be our new slogan.
Yeah.
Troy, we're sexy.
So.
Sexiest thing in Lincoln County.
So we can't lose focus of that as well. We got to keep pushing.
Well, at least we now know what our mission statement is. We haven't got to that point. To be the sexiest in Lincoln County.
So that would be 24 full-time officers and then plus 3 part-time officers and an additional, this was the part-time police operations assistant. So it would be a total of 4 part-time officers, but it would be 3 road part-time officers and 1 just dedicated to being an operations assistant. So, but it would be 24 full-time personnel.
Thoughts, feelings from the other board members that haven't spoken yet?
I feel like I'm being a little bit repetitive. We seem to tackle the toughest issue first, is personnel, and I appreciate Chief Tinter for being here and having some discussions on his vision. That's very helpful. To me, the rollback makes the most sense. That's the easiest. It takes a chunk out of that deficit. I am not against the use tax, but as I have said on record, it's going to be educate, and it's not anything that happens that we can just kind of forget about until next April or August. We got to be thinking about that tomorrow and what that process is and how do we educate and how do we look at best practices and where is it working and what do they do and how do we mold that for Troy. And I'm happy to be a part of that process. It's not something that's foreign to me. So it doesn't sound like we solved all our issues, but kind of with what Alderman Gephardt and Cazetta have said, that's where I'm at, and I think it's good progress. So.
Well, one thing, you talk about rolling back the tax thing, back to where it was. Yeah, it generates a lot of money. I guess it's the board's fault that was there at that time that they didn't put a sunshine clause into that tax rollback. Because a lot of citizens look at that. You know, there was comments made when we made the adjustment for the trash pickup, that it affected the younger people more than it did the older people. Well, this affects all people. And a lot of people are struggling right now. The economy is not the best in the world. We wouldn't be here arguing over this, trying to get everything figured out. But there's a lot of people out there, and Troy included, that are living paycheck to paycheck. And even though that might only be another $50 a year, to some people that's major. Because after all, the trash pickup was only $5 a year and created some controversy. So I'm kind of curious, you know, I don't want to see the police force go down any at all. My concern is burnout. One of my concerns is the overworking. That's not good either. The amount of pay that they get above and beyond the regular, where I'm assuming they're getting a regular 2.5% raise, am I correct?
Correct. That's what's,
correct.
That's one step raise, yep.
Okay, so they get a 2.5% raise, but what about all the rest of the employees in the city that sit back and watch these guys get $1.50, roughly $1.57, plus their 2.5 cents, and then sends a message to the rest of them that, and I was here during that one too, and it did not go well. Just food for thought for everything. Take it for what it's worth. Like I said, I've got 10 more months and I'm out of here. Whatever happens after that is fine. Hopefully I'll make it that far. But if you don't treat everybody fair and equitable, you run into more problems than what it's worth. And like I said, you can take that part of that money and you give it to the 24 full-time police officers. Like I said, it doesn't add up to that much money. I would hate to think that my possibility of going from 42 hours a week to 50, 52, 56, 58 hours a week, 60 hours a week for $1.57 more, no. But like I said, I'm only one vote, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Mr. Mayor, I did want to let you know, because of the conversation about it last meeting, I did pull the ballot language from the June 7th, 2011. It's an odd time to have an election, but that's what it says, when they had it.
When was it?
June 7th. There used to be additional dates, and the state got rid of them years ago.
This was 2011?
Yeah, that's when
So the ballot language said, shall the city of Troy, Missouri impose a sales tax of 1/2% for the purpose of funding capital improvements and operation and maintenance, which was not true, because you can't do that with capital improvements, of such improvements, including but not limited to a swimming pool. We just learned, the other day that spent $191,000 on operations that we cannot take out of capital improvement. It comes out of our general fund. When the voters were told that this was going to operate and build a pool, and it really was never going to operate it. So.
I just can't, with good faith, take that pool away. It's just, we lack so many things in this town for kids to do, and I know it's becoming more and more of an issue for, you know, law enforcement's getting called there for more juvenile issues and stuff like that, but it's...
And we try to curtail that.
Well, I mean, that's every pool in every town. It's gonna happen, but...
The reason why I'm bringing this up is just I want to make sure you realize when they voted the ballot box, it did not ever say we would lower your taxes or that, yeah, we just didn't say that. When you voted, you were told you want to build a pool, it's going to be a half-cent sales tax.
I think it will be, if we do go forward with this property tax rule, well, establishing where it would be. I think it's important that the board educate our citizens, our constituents, in the fact of, yes, this might have been promised in 2011, but look at what has changed since then. Our population has doubled where, I mean, we have roads designed to handle 1,000 cars and we have 10,000 cars on it. So we have to be realistic, and our prices are up as well as the price of gas and everything else.
Unfortunately, when the city population doubles again in 10 years, then they're going to say, that pool's not big enough. I need $8 million for a pool.
I am still a little concerned about the rest of the employees, though, in getting a raise. I mean, I do remember the last time the officers were given a raise, and it's not that they didn't deserve it, because they do, but I think the other employees felt like, you know, I do my part also. So I'm kind of torn on that. I don't think the other employees should have to go without getting a raise also.
My question to that and comment to that would specifically be, what are the other cities, their employees at these other cities, are they competitive to, are all the other city employees in their positions competitive to these other cities? Or are they in a drastic circumstances such as we are, starting at $61,000 compared to an agency 14 miles down the road starting people at $75,000 or $80,000, up to starting lateral entry officers at $93,000.
Oh, I agree.
That's higher than the max you can go with the county.
And that's, I understand about everyone wanting to feel, because we feel that all the time. We have for several years. I know that we as a city went several years without any step increase raises for extended periods of time. And that is the reason why it appears every few years, it seems like we're slapping a Band-Aid on something to try to slow the bleed down, but that's all it is a Band-Aid. What I've proposed for us is for us to maintain our services, to create depth into our agency, and for us to continue to grow, looking towards, this is a 5-year plan, and we're extending and we're looking 5 years down the road. We're not just looking at what needs to be fixed right now. We're looking at how can we continue to add police officers to our rank and our structure, but it has to be done over a period of time. And for us to be competitive, this is where we're just looking at the black and white numbers to where we are compared to where other agencies are for lateral entry employees. And if it's a way for us, at least in our position, on the police side of it, if it's a way for us to be able to get good quality competitive salaries and also continue to look towards the future, that this is how it helps us to be able to incentivize our officers, to be able to let them feel valued, to be able to let them feel that they're a part of something bigger, and for them to know that they're cared for and that they're going to be taken care of. currently, right now, it's very hard, starting at $61,000 a year, when they can go right down the road, because they all have that experience now to be able to do so. And if we have no officers, or we lose officers to the point and we can't attract more officers to come to our agency, does that mean that we end up having to go and become a part-time police department? For a city of 16,000 plus, I don't see where that can help benefit anything.
I will say, I think we all know that our neighbors to the south of us are I call it the mecca of money.
Yes.
And while we, not just police officers, but everybody deserves more money. Every person that sits in this room, everybody deserves more money. We're just in a position where without real economic change here, we can't do it this second. Should we work towards it? I agree, we actually should work towards it. But, we pulled the numbers at the county a year or 2 years ago. The Costco in St. Peter's brings in half of what the county brings in. And that's just one place in St. Peter's. So we should work towards that for everybody.
All of those figures should be on.
Not saying we make this the new Winsville.
Right.
But
Well, there's a lot of people get up to the.
oh, I know. But without real economic change, we cannot ever have the discussion of can we compete, because we simply just can't.
You're absolutely right.
So,
Kind of where we're stuck.
Yeah.
if it's working the way.
I wish we could have, without the impact of it, I would like to have Costco, but without the problems of breaks.
People will lose their
Right. You have more? You have more?
No, I don't.
All right, well, last Alderman.
Yeah, so in regards to the increase for everybody else, I understand the concerns about other departments wanting increases, but I'm a bit of an economics nerd, so there's supply and demand. At the end of the day, there's a low supply of police right now, and thus there's a high demand. If you're going to meet that demand, you have to raise prices, i.e. you have to raise how much we're going to pay them. I think increasing how much we pay them to, I think the chief's proposal of $70,000 is actually not bad. And if we did a hiring freeze for a year, actually, for some of the vacancies, we would actually come out with, and did the rollback from the numbers that I did, and James, I can look at this with you later to confirm it, but we'd actually only have about a $200,000 deficit for this year, and that would slowly go down over time. I get everybody's concerns. We don't want to decrease the amount of positions that we have, but at the end of the day, we're not going to recruit those positions anyways with where we're at. We need to find a way to be competitive. This is a way to do so. This is a way to make us competitive and put us back on the market with other agencies, and at the same time it offsets the budget crisis for at least, according to my numbers, another 4 to 5 years. So that's my biggest proponent of why we're better off at least doing a hiring freeze until we have the funding to recruit for those positions.
Just a clarification question. So to go to the 24 authorized, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, and the numbers I have don't include the part-time. I'll have to
Yeah, we'll have to
update my numbers with those. But from what I can tell, it's about a $247,000 increase. $247,000 increase in the total cost per year. If you do that, you add that to everything else, and then you offset it with, like I said, doing a hiring freeze on 6 of the 9 open positions. And that's 4 of the full-time ones, and then 2 others, and then do the rollback. Like I said, you're gonna end up having, the deficit will be $190,000 at the end of the year.
So just so we're clear.
And that's just my numbers. I might be wrong.
Well, so we know what the numbers are according to the chief, which was, I think it was, the number was it 115 or 150, chief?
So
Full implementation of the plan, his estimate, which by the way, has not been reviewed or audited.
No, I understand
by
that.
myself, as far as the numbers go.
Yeah.
yes, so through adding the part-time personnel, it would save the city what I have figured as $109,342.45 in combined taxpayer saving.
So to fully implement the plan, which would be to lower it 5 officers, that wouldn't be a hiring freeze, that'd be a permanently lower it.
We would set the authorized number at
Yeah,
22.
to offset it.
I
I get it. So
We would
but
have-
some people are thinking, oh, that means 10 years from now, we're not gonna have those numbers back. No, that's not at all what this means. What this means is that as the
Well-
funding becomes available and more people move here, we can hire more people.
But just so we're clear that, so this is where the number of the deficit would be then.
Yes.
What is that? I can't see that one.
434.
Is that with the property roll there? Going up, so we would still be a $400,000 deficit?
Yes.
Even with,
He said, and his total savings, I mean, you're adding significant cost and you're saving significant money, but the total savings is $109,000.
yeah, I'm going past off some numbers that I got the other day, so I mean, but.
I mean-
if you and I can review this at a later time, it'd be great, so I don't want to take up everybody's time. to get it.
So, well, let me say this, and I think to the point that a few of you have raised about the use tax. The reality is, no matter how many homes we build here, we talked about how much a new subdivision makes for the city. Right now, that's what they're building here, lots of subdivisions. We're not going to grow the revenue from that. That's just not going to be the case. We've already talked about also, what does a C-store make, for the city? For the square footage that a place like a Fast Lane or Quick Trip is, $35,000 a year. I mean, that's a lot of Quick Trips and Fast Lanes that we would have to get to make up that current deficit, not including additional revenue growth for all the new subdivisions, creating more people, etc. So, I mean, I think the use tax is certainly, and we've also talked about just making our tax base more diverse so that we're not so heavily dependent on one type of tax or a couple, in this case, a couple of major retailers. I think that by giving someone a reason to vote for the use tax, which isn't just we need money, I think giving them a reason to vote for it by saying we have a hiring freeze on 5 police positions.